It's in direct correlation to the lashon hara that a person speaks. There is leprosy. In fact, the chinuch uses this mitzvah as the mitzvah to discuss the very important concept in Yiddishkeit and hashkafa called hashkafa pratis. If you ask which mitzvah, demonstrates hashkafa pratis, it is this mitzvah. You speak lashon hara, right? Divine intervention is Taras, right? This is the one, and here's where the chinuch discusses all different, issues about or questions about hashkafa pratis. He questions, whether a leaf falls off a tree, is that considered to be divine intervention, that Hashem willed it, or did Hashem just put that into the mechanism of nature, and nature takes its course, if you will? Or does HaKadosh Baruch Hu actually divine that leaf off the tree? He discusses that issue during this mitzvah because this mitzvah is the mitzvah that deals with Hashgacha Pratis. But that is not what we're going to talk about tonight. Just letting you know that that's certainly a really important piece. Hashgacha Pratis is really a derivative of this mitzvah. I want to talk a little about lashon hara. It's a very popular subject, and it's also a very popular sport called lashon hara. Right? So I want to talk a little bit about lashon hara. It's interesting. The lashon hara is really just one side of the coin. It really, we just finished the Yantif where we say v'ramam tonu mikal shonos, that you elevated us above all lashonos, all languages. It would seem that the Torah is really telling us, or the Tefillah is telling us, that what really elevates a person could be his speech. V'ramam tonu mikal shonos. What makes us unique is how we speak, what we speak, that we think before we talk, and that really is why we use expression v'ramam tonu mikal shonos. So lashon hara is the flip side when we abuse speech, but certainly the positive side is when we know how to use speech in a proper way and what we can accomplish through speech as well. Certainly when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, He didn't think the world into being, He spoke the world into being. And God spoke and said, let there be light, let there be a firmament, etc. And Hashem wanted to teach us this very concept of what speech can do, that speech can actually create. And He gave us, in fact, we'll see shortly, the defining character trait of the human being is his ability to speak. Vayi Adam Nefesh Chai, the very famous Onkelos, when God created Adam as a Nefesh Chai, Onkelos says, the Ruach Mamala, that he's able to speak. So we see a defining character of the human being is his ability to speak. And just like God created through speech, we can also create through speech. And I mentioned in the past, I believe that even the words abracadabra really come from those words. Abra, kedabra. I can create. Bara means create. Kidabra, like daber, speak. I create as I speak, and so that's where it comes from, that concept. But it speaks of the idea of being able to take a concept and bring it out. Right, a concept in your thought. When you speak, you're able to bring it out, and that's really we'll see shortly. The greatest human being is bringing out potential. Before we get to Lashon Hara specifically, the Torah speaks about in Tazria about a woman giving birth. Isha ki sazria v'yolda zachar. It's interesting. It doesn't say Isha ki, yolda zachar. Why emphasize ki sazria, that she becomes pregnant? Yolda zachar. Why do we need to emphasize that piece? Just the mere fact that she gave birth. So she has a male, pure for 7 days, 8 days. For the female, right? We know the different halachas. Why emphasize ki sazria? It's also interesting. Zohar says something interesting. A woman, from the moment she's pregnant, all she talks about is her pregnancy. Now, Zohar was not just making some social comment. What he was really saying is that a woman is able to identify or relate to the child even before it's born. Because a woman actually has the ability to discern potential in a way that a man doesn't. So a woman relates to the child while the child is still potential. The man deals more with what facts are in front of him. They even say when a man marries a woman, he's looking for somebody, whoever he marries, that's what he wants her to be 20 years from now also. Don't change. And when a woman marries a man, she's marrying a project, right? When she marries a man, she says, I could get this guy in 20 years, right? A woman really kind of sees potential and really wants to develop potential. And that's Isha Ki Sazriya V'Yolda Zachar. It's not coincidence that the mitzvah of Milah is mentioned in this parsha as well, because Milah is also about the coming from the organ of the male, which represents the potential for birth. And so really what distinguishes man from animal is potential. Animal doesn't have potential. Animal, in fact, the word bahema is a combination of two words, ba, ma. It is what it is. Whatever an animal is, it is. it gets bigger physically, but it doesn't become anything more. It doesn't develop maturity-wise. There's no maturation process. Adam, because what Adama, and Adama, ground represents potential growth. That's what it represents, right? In the grounds we see potential growth. So in this, in the parasha, there's a distinction made, and the Torah specifically talks about the animal and then man, and then talks about impurity of the animal, or tumah of an animal, and tumah of a man. And the Chazal point out that there's a certain greatness of man when he's able to tap into his potential. If not, the Chazal say, then yitish kodomecha, even a mosquito preceded you in creation. But if not, what's great about the human being is his great capacity to bring out potential. And that's the idea behind the parasha of Ki Tazira, which impregnating is really represents potential life. And we're emphasizing the ability to bring out potential life. And even in thought, there's the idea of potential in your thought, and then you bring it out through speech. So speech is a very important defining character of a human being. It's taking potential, bringing it out through thought. It's also interesting, just as an aside, when you speak Lashon Hara, the guilty party is not just the person that speaks Lashon Hara, but the person that listens to Lashon Hara is also considered to be a guilty party. And I don't recall if the Maral says it and this location. The Maral really is talking about something else. Maral is discussing the issue of Shomea Ka'ona. We know there's a concept in Judaism that if somebody makes a blessing and you listen to the blessing, you can fulfill your mitzvah with the blessing as well. Shomea, listening, Ka'ona, as if you said it yourself. And the question is, how does that work? So it's kind of like that famous question, when a tree falls in a forest and nobody's there, is it really making a sound? In a sense, says the Maral, when a person speaks, those words are meaningless unless there's somebody else that is able to receive those words. Meaning, it only has significance because there's someone when you speak. The point of speech is to communicate to somebody. That's the whole point of speech. You're communicating with somebody. Well, if there's no somebody else, then there's no point to the speech. So, in a sense, is there speech when there's nobody else around? The answer is no. So what really makes your speech worthwhile is the fact that there's a listener. So Shemea Ka'ona, the reason why the listener fulfills the mitzvah, because in a sense the listener helps contribute to the speech. If he wouldn't be listening, the speech wouldn't be significant. So the listener becomes, I'm sorry?
Have to be how about when we speak to Hashem and daven?
Yeah, okay, that's right.
Considered a listener? Not really.
I'm sorry? That could be that also. Could be. But certainly in this case, Maral says that Shemaya Ka'ona works based on the principle that the listener is making the words, giving them value, so to speak. In a sense, that's happens with Lashon Hara also. Lashon Hara, if a guy speaks land and he says the words, it means nothing unless there's somebody on the receiving end to receive those words, right? So it's the receiver that really makes the words have some value, or in this case, negative value. So that's why the listener is a contributor, because those words would not really have any value or have any impact without the listener as well. Okay, just one aside about Lashon Hara, but now I want to get into the main discussion of Lashon Hara. Yes?
Yeah, one question. It's provided also that the listener says Amen.
Correct. Oh, by Shemaya Ka'ona, yeah.
That's why it's so important that
but that's only to acknowledge that you really listen.
The people should say Amen.
Yeah, you should answer, but that's the only way of acknowledging that you're really listening with that purpose in mind. That's what it really means, yes.
With Lashon Hara, there's a third person. The person
that's being
spoken about. So three people are involved.
Correct.
When you're speaking Lashon Tov, is it symmetric, or is it just the person speaking and the person listening?
So we're going to get there.
Okay, fine.
We're going to get there. All right. There's a flip side of Lashon Hara. We'll see. We're going to get there hopefully soon. All right. I'll try to get there. Okay. So, but again, the power of speech in general, or how somebody, the Chazon Ish once asked somebody for a pen. So the student said, "Oh, I have a pen, but it doesn't write." So the Chazon Ish said, "Well, I have a broom, but it doesn't write either." Right? What he meant to say was like, "So why are you telling me you have a pen if it doesn't write? Like, think before you talk." Like, what do you say? I have a pen, but it doesn't write. So what is? I have a broomstick, it doesn't write either, right? It means he was trying to say, he wasn't trying to be cynical, or he's just trying to point out, why don't you think before you talk? Well, what does that mean, right? Is that helpful at all? And very often we're guilty of the fact that we just simply talk without really thinking. In fact, that's one of the byproducts is Lashon Hara. In fact, we all know that at one of the things that this leper has to bring, this one of his lepers has to bring at the end of his term, is he has to bring two birds, right? Because they chatter, they chirp endlessly and without necessarily any real purpose. And it's not coincidence in my mind that the symbol of Twitter is a bird, right? Because that's exactly what it is. It's a bird. It's the exact same thing. But because what's going on is this is incessant, right? It's incessant chatter. That's what it is. It's just that's what Twitter is. Just I'm telling you why. I just because I can't stop myself from talking, right? Why do you need to share with me that you bought a bagel at 8:52? It doesn't make a difference, right? But it's a bit of a machal, a bit of a sickness. But that's what gets us in trouble. That gets us in real trouble. That's a symbol of Twitter is that bird. But okay, so I want to talk about last week. I think we talked about how the 4 different animals represent the 4 different exile groups. So I want to take it a step further tonight. In this week's Torah portion, the Torah describes 4 different discolorations of white, or different shades of white that represent tsaras. And again, our sages tell us that those 4 different discolorations represent the 4 different exile groups. All right? Not a coincidence that the number 4 comes up in that way also. I'm not going to get into this time how each one relates, although actually if you look at the words of each one, the se'es, sapachas, each one really alludes to another exile, but we'll be on this for now. But what I want to talk about is, in general, what does tsaras have to do with exile? Like why is there a correlation between speaking Lashon, getting tsaras, and exile? Why would that be part of the symbolism? It will be the exile. So there's a very famous medrash. Everyone knows this medrash. My people. There was a peddler, a rochel. Was a peddler that was going around saying, "Mia ish chafetz chayim." Right? Actually, before that. I'm sorry. Take it back. This peddler walked around saying, "Who wants to buy some of the chayim? Who wants to buy the elixir of life? I'm selling an elixir of life." And he had people gathering around, or Biana came around also, and he said, "Okay, show me your elixir of life." So this fellow quoted the pasuk in Tehillim, "Mi yesha chafetz chayim." Who is the one that wants life, right? Sumar b'asaytoi, right? But l'tzar l'shon chamara, he said, l'tzar l'shon chara. If you want to have life, stay away from speaking lashon hara. To which Biana said, "Wow, that's amazing! I never knew that. Thank you very much." Which is kind of interesting reaction on his part because he's read this pasuk and Tehillim many times himself. I mean, okay, sure, it's kind of a clever way to bring it out and make it more real, but for him to say that, I never thought of it this way before, it kind of boggles the mind that Rabbi Yanai never understood it in that simple way. So I want to share with you what I think Rabbi Yanai might have meant in a whole different way. All right? And for that, we're going to talk about a little bit what Lashon Hara is all about, vis-a-vis the Mitzvah. Okay. One of the distinctive elements of the Mitzvah is we know he's sent away from the camp. Now, this is not really a quarantine. It's not because he's contagious. That's not the idea. So why is he sent away? So some people say, well, we want to let him know how words are so divisive. That when you spoke badly about somebody else, you probably set people apart. Now you're going to have the same experience of feeling apart from everybody else. Be aware of how divisive words can be. And that's certainly one idea. But I'd like to share with you perhaps a deeper idea of why we send him away. What's the point of sending him away? The truth matters, being sent away is not just one element of Mitzvah. It seems to be the defining idea of the Mitzvah. In fact, the word Mitzvah, now we know the Mitzvah stands for Motzi Ra. You spoke bad, you elicited bad or bad speech. But Onkelos says the word Sagiru, which means to be closed or to be closed off. So it seems that the very nature of the Mitzvah is that he is closed off. And we send him away to show that you are closed off and away. But what does that really mean? But we're going to try to figure out exactly what that means, that the Mitzvah is closed off, and we send him away to kind of highlight that's the nature of his character. Okay, so we have to ask the question, what causes people to speak Lashon Hara? So he said one reason, people just like to gossip, and they keep yapping and yapping like that bird. But we know there are many other reasons why a person might speak Lashon Hara. Chazal tell us that the second base of Midrash, we talked about this last week, was destroyed because of sinas chinam, baseless hatred, right? And specifically, Chafetz Chaim says it refers to Lashon Hara. So it would seem that Lashon Hara is simply the expression of sinas chinam. You have sinas chinam that you harbor in your heart, and it gets expressed, it gets brought out through Lashon Hara. All right? So, in a sense, that means a person that speaks Lashon Hara has to realize that the malady doesn't begin with the tongue, it begins with the heart. Right? That's what it seems to be. All right? But what is sinas chinam? So sinas chinam, the definition is baseless hatred, right? Or hatred without a reason. Well, that's a problem. Hatred for no reason doesn't make sense. Why would I hate for no reason? What does that really mean? So it really doesn't mean no reason. It means no good reason. All right? It means simply hate with no good reason. Now, what does that mean? So I'm going to give you an example. Let's say I own something, right? I own whatever I own, right? And somebody takes it away from me. So I'm resentful. They take it away from me. Makes sense, right? And rightfully so. But what happens? I think I own something, and they take it away from me. Then I'm resentful, but it's really baseless. Okay? So now we get into the point. So baseless hatred is not just this it's imagination that in his head that doesn't make any sense. But again, just like if someone took something that was yours, you'd feel rightfully so resentful. If somebody took away something you perceived as yours, you're always going to be resentful, even though it's a misperception. All right? So to everybody else, it's baseless, and to you it's not, because in your mind, in your worldview, that is reason for you to be upset because they took something away from you. So then what does that mean? Every person should have a healthy sense of self, but if you don't really take care of it, it turns into an ego. And if it's not it's not constrained, if it's not regulated, so then what happens is, now everybody wants attention, and everybody wants to be shown appreciation, and to some degree that's fine, but when it gets out of hand, what really happens is that you think all the attention should be given towards you, you should be in the spotlight, all the appreciation should be towards you. If anybody else is being given attention to, or shown appreciation of, well, they're taking away something that they think belongs to you. In your mind, you're the reason why this happened. In your mind, this is, you should be the center. And when somebody else it becomes the center of attention, that in your mind, they're taking away something that belongs to you. So it's the sinas chinam, because in your mind, it belongs to you, this attention. The gratitude belongs to you. But it doesn't. But in your mind, they're taking away something that belongs to you. That's what. Let me just finish this thought. So that's where it really comes from. So it's justified from his perspective, right? So he doesn't think it's baseless hatred, but the Chazal tells it's baseless because it comes from a very false view of yourself. Okay, if that's the case, when a person has sinas chinam, he's really living in a world of gullus. Now we're trying to connect it back to the four shades of white. That's what gullus. Why? Gullus means you're in a different spot than you should be, right? You ever express a person's living in a bubble, right? That means he's living in his own little world. The sinas chinam person is a person that's living in his own little world. He creates his own little world where he should be the center, and really everything is because of him. And if somebody, if somebody says something, he automatically takes it as a slight, even if not, because in his world, how can he even think something that he misreads? And they tell the story about this guy. He was a kohen in a small little town, and every week he got their leave. He's the only kohen in town. And then once in a while, a stranger roll in town, so the gabbai would give the stranger a kohen. So the guy says to the gabbai, "I see what's going on. You only give me an aliyah when there's nobody else to give an aliyah to, right?" It's a misperception, because he's living in his own little world where he feels somehow all the attention belong to him, and he's very resentful when it goes elsewhere. But that's his own little bubble. That's his own little gullus. We send him away because we say, "Hey, buddy, you're living in your own little world. You got to wake up to a reality that's real, not the world that you live in." And that's the issue with the Mitzvah, and that's why it's called closed off. He lives in his own little closed up little world. That's the problem with the Mitzvah. So.
But it happens to be accurate.
What?
It happens to be accurate. He only gets the aliyah when there's no other going.
Exactly. But his mind, it's right. Exactly. But it's his mind. It's only when there's nobody else.
Right.
When it's the reverse. That's the problem. Right. So it's also interesting about the Mitzvah is that normally tumah is only contracted through touch, unless it's a dead person. The person we know, even under an oel, under a tent, under a roof, you contract that to him as well, right? The exception is the Mitzorah. So the Mitzorah, I'm going to call the Mitzorah dead man talking, right? That's what he is. He's really dead. He's not living in he's living in his own little world. He's not living in the world that's truly alive. He's living in his own little world that it's not the world of life. And in a sense, that's what this peddler was saying. Now, by the way, I'll come back in a second. Let's just finish the thought. The peddler was saying like this: "Man bar samad chayim." Who wants the elixir of life? So the simple understanding could have been when David Melech said, "Mi ha'isha chafetz chayim," who wants life? But I think, okay, I get that. If you want to have eternal life, if you want to have olam haba, you better not speak lashon hara because you're going to mess yourself up. This Rochel was saying something else. In this world, if you want to be living in this world, then you better not speak lashon hara. Because if you're speaking lashon hara, you're a dead man talking. You're living in your own little world. So that was the chiddush to Rabbi Yanai. He never thought of that. He thought David Melech saying, "You want eternal life? Then you better not cut yourself by speaking lashon hara." When he gave him this elixir, he said, "Who wants the elixir of life to live in this world? That you're really alive, that you're living in a world of reality, and not your own little self-illusion world." That's what the chiddush that Rihanna didn't really perceive to that extent until he came across this Rochel. So that was the big chiddush that we're talking about. Not just living in the next world. We'll talk about that too. What the power of lashon hara does for your next world. It's major problems. But what this Rochel was certainly saying as well is that if you want life in this world, then you can't be a person that harbors sinas chinam, and you can't be the kind of person that has an ego that just the whole world revolves around you, because that's a false world. You're not living in life. You're not really living life. In fact, you're living a world that's you're always resentful. You're not really living at all. Okay, that's the idea. In fact, that's what happened with Adam Arishon. When Hashem says to Adam Arishon, we talked about this before. What's the first commandment to Adam Arishon? What was the first commandment? No, that was a blessing for most people. It was,
Eat from the
I want you to eat and enjoy all the fruits of this garden. Just don't eat from this one tree. And he makes a beeline for this one tree. Why? Because he says, you know what? All the other trees, they're not worth anything. It's this one that I want. Right? So he again, it's this crazy perception of things that all those trees, they don't have any value. It's the one that can have that I have value. To which Hashem says to him, Ayeka, where are you? Meaning, which world are you living in? That's a world of a misconception. Ayeka means which world are you living? Where are you? That's not the world of reality. The world of reality is everything out there is for you to enjoy. It's good stuff. Don't think, that's not worth. I only want. Don't have to give me joy is the one I can't have. So Ayeka was the same thing. He kind of drove himself from Gan Eden because he was living in the wrong world. All right. So that's one idea behind lashon. I just want to say as an aside how everything's just so beautiful. The classic Reb Tzaddik in this Chazal that we talked about, the Rochel, the peddler, because that's who wants life. The Rochel comes from a town called Tzipori. That's what the Gemara says. Now, Rochel, while it means peddler, also Rochel means somebody speaks slander. So the Rochel means peddler, and the word Rochel means slanderer. So isn't it interesting that this Rochel, who was peddling the Sam of Chaim, the elixir of life, he came from a city called Tzipori, which Tzipor means bird. Says Reb Tzaddik, what was going on? Tzaddik says, this is kind of parenthetical, it just makes how everything just comes together. This is a person that came from a town of Tzipori, or philosophy of the Tzipor. Chat. And he was guilty of lashon hara his whole life. Because he was a rochel in his previous life, so to speak. He was a guy who spoke lashon hara. He was peddling lashon hara. He was peddling gossip. And he felt therefore the only way to redeem himself was by going out from town to town to teach everybody the true value of speech. So it's very fascinating that he came from the town of Tzipori. So tzaddik means he came from that philosophy where he was a tzipor himself, guilty, as charged of speaking lashon hara, and that's why he found his mission in life was to undo that by teaching everybody what the real elixir of life is. And that this Rochel, who was a slanderer, became a peddler to teach the opposite as well. That's how tzaddik kind of puts a kind of a neat bow on the story. But that's why they have lashon hara. Yes, you had a point you wanted to make.
Sinat chinam, senseless hatred, to me seems tied up with ego issues. A person whose ego is in the wrong place is either a self-hating person or a person with a massive ego, and that's the reverse side of the same thing. So,
Well, yes, certainly we
this
said
is
that.
how you get to...
Right, we said that. We said exactly that's the ego sees a whole different world out there, a very distorted world. As I was saying, right? The ego sees a very distorted world. That's exactly the issue.
The other thing is that the cure so to speak. The treatment
Yes.
for Sarat
Yeah.
is similar to the treatment for someone with contact with a dead person. And, in terms of using the bird and a few of the other things, Rabbi Eitan Meir, I think, goes through that in one of his
I don't
Divrei
know.
Torah.
That I don't know. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So there's that connection. And when Miriam had Sarat, Aaron said she's like a dead person.
Right. Right.
So
Same
it's
thing.
all
Right.
back to
Right. Exactly.
life versus
Yep. Yep.
not living in
Right. Dead man
correctly
talking.
this world.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So that very good. So that is the idea of tsaras and using the power of speech the wrong way, chatter. I have a pen that doesn't write. It's like not being careful with your words. The flip side is obviously being careful with your words, and that's what I get to. I want to talk about the flip side for a second. Lashon hara really also has its root, something called ayin hara. Lashon hara means you're speaking badly about somebody because you want to see the bad of the person. In fact, Chazal tell us that the nega, which means the point of tsaras, has to be flipped around into an oneg. You know what it means to something that will eventually joy. And the difference between nega and oneg is nega is the opposite of oneg. Nega, the ayin is at the end, right? Oneg, the ayin is spelled in the beginning of the word. So a nega is when you're looking down at a person. The ayin is at the bottom. Your eye means eye means eye. You're seeing the bottom. You're seeing the worst of the person. Oneg is when you're able to see the best of the person, where the ayin is the beginning of the word, meaning on top of the person. You're looking for the good of the person, not for the bad of the person. So I want to use that as a kind of a segue into exactly the opposite. So if lashon hara is just another way of describing a person seeing the bad in a person, that's what it really is, right? You recognize him. So the opposite of that is seeing the good in a person, right? And we call that dan lekaf, to give someone the benefit of the doubt, or say something good about that person is the opposite part. So I want to talk a little bit about that concept, about both sides. Lashon hara is very damaging, as we said, in this world, but it's also damaging in the world to come. I think I must mention this before. Chazal tell us that lashon hara is worse than idolatry, adultery, and murder. That's a pretty heavy lineup, idolatry and murder, right? How could it be worse than that? Chazal also tell us that lashon hara is worse than all Averos because it magnifies all sins. Also, what does that really mean? So I once explained this, and I'm saying it a little bit differently, but the general idea is that Chazal tell us that this world operates like, the world in malchusa da'ara k'malchusa, malchus d'rekia k'malchus da'ara. The kingdom in heaven operates the same way the kingdom in this world operates. What does that mean? That means that, just like in this world, how does it work? Somebody commits a crime, so the policeman first has to catch him. If you're not caught, nothing happens. Then the policeman writes you a summons, you get hauled into court. Get hauled into court, so you probably need to bring an attorney with you. Then there's a prosecutor, and then there's a judge, and then there's a whole negotiation. Come on, judge, let him off the hook. He's never done this before. It's only a first-time offense. Go easy on him. The second offense, okay, I'll give you, community service. Fourth time, right? And that's the entire process. Well, it works in the same way in Shemayim too. We commit a crime, so then the policeman reports it into Shemayim, it alerts the court system, and then there's a court case for you. There's a judge, and there's a prosecuting attorney, and there's your defense attorney. Defense attorney is the mitzvahs that you've done. The prosecuting attorney is the averos that you've done, right? And then you have a court case. So that's how it operates. And the same way in this world you can kind of negotiate. So in that world there's a negotiation also. Your defense will say, "Come on, Hashem, this is his first avera. Cut him a break." Oh, it's only the first time. He means well. Hashem said, "Fine." So I'll let him. He'll get away with 20 hours of chesed service instead of community service, right? And there's that kind of stuff that goes on. All right. So, but what that really means is, if you carry it to its logical conclusion, in this world, you only get into trouble if the policeman catches you, right? If that camera doesn't catch you speeding, no problem, right? If I speed down 7 lights, no cameras, no problem. If I speed down New Hampshire Avenue, problem. As my wall of pictures of my my car can attest to. All right. So the bottom line is, if you're not caught, no problem. All right. So what I'm going to say something is really, really amazing. I'm going to tell you that there is a way to beat the system. Just like in this world, if you're not caught, if you put something over the camera, you don't get caught, you beat the system. There's a way to beat the system. How is that? The policeman, which is the Satan in this case, can only report your case in the court if you speak Lashon Hara. If you speak badly about others, he now has the right, measure for measure, to speak badly about you. You don't speak Lashon Hara, he can't speak anything about you. So if you left right after this point in the class, you can say, Rabbi Taran said, I can have my cheeseburgers as long as I don't speak Lashon Hara, right? That's it. But it's not quite that way. There are no free lunches and no free cheeseburgers. But I'm not backing off what I said. It's absolutely true. If you don't speak Lashon Hara, you will never get schlepped into court. So here's the catch. The catch is very simple. If somebody commits a crime, he shoplifts, and somebody catches you, that person happens to be your father. Now your father also happens to be a judge. So your father has two choices. You say, son, we got to talk about this. Or your father can say, son, I'll see you in court. Which would you prefer? Would your father say to you, son, we got to talk about this? Or your father say to you, you'll have a day in court, I'm going to report you to the authorities. Which one would you rather have? Why? Because as a judge, he's somewhat limited in what he can and cannot do. He's got to follow whatever rules are for the court case. As a father and son, he could show as much compassion as he wants, right? That's what happens also. If we don't speak Lashon Hara, the prosecutor can't say, see you in court. Hashem will still deal with you, but then it's a father and child outside the court system, which is a whole better way for you, all right? So when you speak Lashon Hara, you're dragging yourself into court, and that's what means all your sins get magnified. That's what means all your sins are magnified. Because when you speak Lashon Hara, now everything gets schlepped into court. But if you don't speak Lashon Hara, you don't get schlepped into court. That's what Chazal means. So there's a tremendous danger in the next world. But we spoke about the first shot, how Lashon Hara can ruin this world, but it certainly can ruin your next world as well. Fine. But the flip side is dan lekafschus, when you give someone the benefit of the doubt. So I'll talk a little about that. The power of words, or the power of positive thought, works both ways. So I want to share with you talk a little bit about dan lekafschus, all right? And I just kind of put this together the other day, and I'm kind of using the letter P as just a way of remembering all the different reasons for dan lekafschus, okay? The first letter P for dan lekafschus is practical. You know, if I ask you, why should I give someone benefit of doubt? Why? So one simple answer is very practical. Guess what? You'll be a happier person if you're not always ascribing cynical motives to people, right? It's as simple as that. You'll be happier. Forget about the other person deserving it, not deserving it, for own selfish reasons. If you're always seeing negative other people, you're filled with negativity yourself. So you'll be a happier person if that's the case. That's not one. So P is practical. The next P is psychological, which is spelled like P, guys, right? Mm-hmm. So P is psychological. What does that mean? The Baal Shem Tov. Anybody here take psychology? Nobody takes psychology? In college? What?
Couple
courses. Sure. So, if the Baal Shem Tov would have taught in the psychology course, he could have saved everybody like 4 years of psychology. He says one sentence, 5 words, that I think is pretty much sums up all psychology. And he says, the world is a mirror. What does it mean the world is a mirror? What that means is whatever you see in this world is really a reflection of yourself. If 3 of us will go outside right now, and I say, wow, look at these amazing cars. Somebody say, well, look at these great buildings. Somebody say, well, look at these people. One guy's a people person, one guy's a car person, one guy's a building person, right? You see a reflection of yourself. And therefore, when you see negative in someone else, it might often be because it's your own shortcoming that you recognize in the other person. In fact, the Baal Shem says that's how sometimes does us a big favor, because we can't see our own shortcomings. How do you see your own shortcomings? So sometimes it puts you in a position to judge someone else so you can get to learn about yourself. It's really about learning about yourself.
It's called projection.
Called projection, exactly right.
That's the part of Sinat Chinam that's
right.
reflected in individual self-hatred.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Okay? So that's number 2. So number 2 is that dan lekafschus. That's why in the Mishnah of us it doesn't say dan lekafschus. It says heavy dan es kol adam. And there's a difference. Heavy dan means become a judge that's capable of getting the benefit of the doubt. It doesn't say, it should say judge someone favorably. That's not enough. You have to become that kind of person. What does that mean? You have to become better yourself. Because every negative flaw you have, you're going to tend to see in other people. So having done means become the kind of person that can give people benefit of the doubt. And the only way you can do that is if you become a better person yourself. To the extent that you have all those negative traits, you're going to see them in other people as well. So having done, become that kind of person. That's P number 2. P number 3 is preventive.
Excuse me, Rabbi, one. This is I think the way God, but Moshe asked God, if they ask you, what is your name? He said, Asher Ahyeh.
Right.
I will be what I will be.
Right.
If they're good, I will be good. I mean, like a mirror, the concept of mirror.
That's interesting.
If they do what I
Interesting.
respond accordingly.
Interesting. Okay, interesting. I have to think about that. Interesting. Okay. Hey, Dad. Interesting. Preventive. What is preventive about it? It means, somewhat we said earlier, if you live around people that are really bad people, what is it going to do to you? It's going to make you a bad person also because you're affected by your environment. If you're living around good people, it's going to affect you in a positive way. So basically, you can create your own virtual reality. If you see the good in everybody, guess what? You surround yourself with good people. If you see the negative in everybody, you've just created a negative environment for yourself. So you'll be impacted by the negative environment that you yourself created. So seeing and giving a person benefit of doubt really helps create a virtual reality that's supportive for you.
Isn't that interesting?
Huh?
I like that.
Yeah? Now, again, giving the benefit of doubt doesn't mean be naive.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody has a bad track record for doing X, Y, and Z, it doesn't mean that. It means when you don't know how to explain something away about a person, give them the benefit of doubt. Another P, philosophical. Okay? And that's the following. If I asked you, back it up, why should I give people the benefit of doubt? Now, so right now I gave pretty much for own benefit. It's really, you'll be a happier person, you won't surround yourself with negative environment. But is there a moral obligation to give someone the benefit of doubt? And if yes, why?